Which transfer portal targets could commit to Auburn this weekend?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're dapping it up this Friday. It's Montgomery radio vet Darrell Dapprich joins us on today's edition of the show. We'll talk about the schedule, the three games that stand out to us, as well as a way too early schedule prediction for 2024. But let's talk about transfer portal and what Auburn could have in front of them this weekend. It's a big visit weekend for the Tigers, both via the portal and for the recruiting side of things. But Darrell, the first guy that I think has a chance to pop this weekend, we talked about him earlier in the week, but Joey Slackman, the former Penn defensive lineman. He is very athletic. I think he's very versatile when you look at his size and his frame and the way he's able to move it so well. He's 6'4", 300, and he's every bit of that. This is a guy that could come in and start right away and fill that void, I think, that Marcus Harris left behind.
Big get. Defensive line, we've talked about it. Even if Marcus Harris stays, I think you really have to go get some bodies from a depth standpoint. And with Marcus Harris leaving, it became urgent. It became a definite must and a need. So this guy, nice size, like you mentioned. How is he going to engage, line up, and hand battle with SEC offensive linemen when he's used to playing in the Ivy League? That'll be interesting to see. A lot of that stuff. I mean, a lot of guys get to the league, get to the NFL from that level of football. Howie Long was a guy that did that. So I think that, it's a little bit different than a skill position, but 300 pounds is 300 pounds. And I think he's got some experience. Obviously, being in an Ivy League school, I think he can pick up systems quickly. So this is a good get if Auburn is able to procure his commitment this weekend.
Yeah, his first visit was to Florida. He's checking out Auburn on an official visit this weekend. It seems like it's down to those two schools for his services. There's a chance that he pops this weekend. He's certainly one to watch. That is Joey Slackman, the former Penn defensive lineman. Another guy that we're watching is Jaleel Skinner, the very athletic tight end, formerly of the Miami Hurricanes. A lot of folks are projecting him to end up as an Auburn Tiger. That could happen this weekend, Darrell.
He visits this weekend, as you mentioned. His first visit has 3 years left to play, which I really, really like. In the mold of a Rivaldo Fairweather, you can tell there's a prototype. There's a certain blueprint that Hugh Freeze likes in his tight ends. Real athletic guys that can kind of stretch the field. Not a traditional Iowa blocking tight end, and I think you see a more athletic guy. So, and remember, he moved Fairweather outside sometimes. Hugh Freeze did. Is Skinner a guy that could do that in an offensive set? Probably, but I like his size. He's very athletic, and that'd be a good get too because you had was it Fromm that left? So you got Deal coming back, Fairweather coming back, and Micah Riley. You want to just add one to the room. I think he can get some playing time.
I was on the phone with Locked On Canes host Alex Dono. He's one of the best in the biz when it comes to covering the Miami Hurricanes. And I'm like, hey, give me the deal. What's the deal with this guy? And he spoke very, very highly of Skinner. He said it just doesn't really fit what Miami's offensive coaching staff wants in a tight end. He's very athletic. He's a better receiver than he probably is a tight end. And they want their tight ends to block. And he was like, hey, at Auburn, it may be great because Hugh Freeze is okay not using guys to block at the tight end. We saw that a bunch with Rivaldo Fairweather a year ago. And I think having another guy that's similar to Rivaldo and similar to Micah Riley Ducker, I love it. I absolutely love the possibility of bringing this guy in because of the first thing you said about him. 3 years left. What does this offense look like at the tight end position after Rivaldo Fairweather leaves? Well, it could look like Jaleel Skinner, Darrell. And I like the timing of their eligibility and how it stacks. I think that's important, and I think that's something that the staff is thinking about.
That's why it's important, I think, have four tight ends that play a lot of snaps in your tight end room. Now, I know you don't want to tip anything off by a personnel assignment. If you bring Deal in, you're like, oh, it's a run. But it is nice that Auburn has a couple different types of options at tight end, a prototypical run blocking tight end, and then a pass catching athletic one. Again, you don't want to, if you put Fairweather and Skinner in the game, you're probably tipping off, you're throwing it. And Deal, it's they're running it. But it is what it is. I think that Auburn's, it's all about assignment and hat on hat, even if you've got a run blocking tight end. So that's why I like having 4, the versatility of having some that can block and some that can catch.
Yeah, Skinner ran track in high school. I mean, this is a pure athlete. It does sound like drops were an issue in practice with Skinner, which limited him being available on game day to this coaching
staff. And he should fit right into Auburn's receiving room. Then.
Don't say that. Don't say that. We're trying to change things there.
I know. It was just
We're trying to change things. But yeah, Skinner's the guy that could pop this weekend. So certainly watch, be on the lookout for him. I think he fits what Hugh Freeze wants to do with that position. Then the last guy, I think we talked about him last time you were on, Darrell, Fernando Carmona, the San Jose State offensive lineman. He played left guard at San Jose State, 6'4", big frame, very good in pass protection. This is a guy that I think we all need to kind of look at and say, okay, he could possibly be Auburn's starter next season, which I think is huge. I think this is certainly a guy to watch this weekend.
Yeah, this is a guy that we heard his name really, really early, kind of like Robert Lewis when you heard his name really early, the receiver. I'm a little bit weary of, we were really, really high on him and another offensive lineman a couple nights ago, and then within 24 hours, one commit somewhere else. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case with Carmona. I think that this is a guy, especially he's coming in for his visit tomorrow. I think Auburn can close him, and he's a good get. And then I think at some point you got to get one more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Carmona, we talked about this earlier in the week, Darrell, but when you look at his snaps by position, they were all at left tackle. I think I said left guard a second ago. I meant to say left tackle, but an exceptional pass blocker, graded very well in pass protection, which is exactly what you want to see at the left tackle spot. Is he good enough to scoot Dylan Wade inside? That will be one of the biggest stories going into spring if Auburn were to land Fernando Carmona when it's all said and done.
That is a great point. I mean, what you're doing is you're strengthening 2 positions at that point then. So,
you're right.
Offensive tackles are so important. And if you played a lot of reps and a lot of snaps there for San Jose State, then that's going to help if Wade does have to move. It's just, like I said, it solidifies 2 spots when you move someone inside like that. And I think, in my opinion, Britton was recruited. Gunnar Britton was recruited to play offensive tackle, but out of necessity, I think he had to slide over to guard. I hope that Carmona can play the tackle position, which he's recruited for. Yeah,
and we'll see. And this is an interview that he did with Jeffrey Lee of Auburn Live. His reasons for entering the portal, I just love this. This guy's on a mission. Darrell said, quote, it really came down to helping myself and my draft stock. I just wanted to expose myself to playing in front of a bigger environment. And that's going to be the pitch that Hugh Freeze says. He's going to say, hey, look at what I did to several guys at Ole Miss. Look at what we did for Gunnar Britton this past season. Look at the huge strides that Xavion Miller's already taken. And Thornton has been solid. He's been solid on the recruiting front. So this guy seems like a priority. I don't think there's any question about it. He's another name to watch this weekend. He possibly could end up being an Auburn Tiger as soon as this weekend, Darrell. So those are the 3 guys that I'm watching the closest this weekend. Joey Slackman of Penn, Jaleel Skinner of Miami, the tight end, and then offensive tackle Fernando Carmona of San Jose State. Anything you want to add to that, Darrell, before we move on to the schedule?
Interesting that all 3 of those dudes come from all 3 different divisions and levels of football, college football. And, that's the diversity. That's what you got an FCS, you got a group of 5, and you have a Power 5. So I think that's pretty cool and pretty diverse. Yeah,
I think that's right. If you can play, the staff will find you. At least that's what we're all hoping. So we'll see. The 2024 SEC schedules have been revealed. Which 3 games do we think will make or break Auburn's season in 2024? We'll discuss that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Darrell, let me ask you this question. Do you like spending as much money as possible on tickets, or do you like a deal?
I like a deal.
I like a deal too. Game Time, you don't have to spend a whole lot of time. In fact, you don't have to spend hardly any time researching it because they've done the research for you. You don't have to check the million different ticketing services. Game Time's already done it. They've got you covered. Last minute tickets it's easy. It's so easy with Game Time. It doesn't matter when or where or what. It can be sports. It can be concerts. I've bought both sports tickets and concert tickets from Game Time. It's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. So download the Game Time app. It's free. Create an account. And when you use code LOCKEDONCollege, you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Auburn Med Aesthetic. Darrell, it's the holidays. We're always asking ourselves, what should we buy the significant other? You don't have to worry about that anymore. Go to auburnmedaesthetics.com. You can get a gift card. It's very, very easy. It'll take you 2 seconds, and it'll buy your significant other so much happiness, a nice day of relaxation. She'll love working with the folks at Auburn Med Aesthetics, specifically Dr. Nancy Herring. She is the best, as well as her master esthetician. They've got a ton of experience in the med spa industry, so be sure to check them out. auburnmedaesthetics.com. Get your gift cards there today. All right, Darrell, let's talk about this 2024 Auburn football schedule. We'll go through it very quickly. Alabama A&M, Cal, New Mexico, Arkansas, Oklahoma, all at home. And then you have the bulk of your road schedule. You go to Georgia, bye week. You go to Missouri. You go to Kentucky. Then you return home against Vanderbilt, ULM, and Texas A&M. And then you go to Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl. The game that I think could make or break Auburn's season is on October 19th, and it's when you go on the road to play Missouri. I think this is going to be one of those toss-up games. I think Auburn will be the underdog in this game, but we've seen Auburn go to Columbia and play well. And to me, if Auburn wants to have a season where they can kind of stick their chest out and say, we are ascending as a program, that to me is the most important game as we sit here recording this in mid-December, is you going to Missouri and finding a way to win that game.
It's really intriguing to me because you don't know which Missouri. I mean, look, just 2022,
you're right,
they lost to Auburn. And that program looked like they were in shambles. It looked like Eli Drinkwitz was on the hot seat. And then the following year, this year, look how much ascension they had. So, I mean, that's a good, I think, barometer for a program like Auburn that can go from 6-6 to what Missouri. I think they won 10 games. I don't know if it's going to be the Missouri that won 10 games. I don't think it's going to be the Missouri that won 4 games, but I just don't know if Missouri's going to replicate what they did this year. So that game to me is a little bit more winnable than it looks like coming off of what they did this year. For me, it's the Oklahoma game.
Okay.
I mean, I think Auburn can go into Oklahoma and should go into Oklahoma 4-0. And then at that point, if you sneak up and beat Oklahoma at Jordan-Hare and you're 5-0 against an opponent that it's so intriguing, you haven't played them except in the Sugar Bowl, but you get them at home, an opponent you've never seen in Auburn, you sneak up and beat them and go 5-0 to start the season, then you're off and running, and you could have a really, really special year. I think we kind of felt like 3-0 was very doable. Last year it was. Your 4-0, I think, is very, very doable with the chance of getting to 5-0 with beating Oklahoma. That's why I think that's the most crucial. You go 5-0 can change the whole complexion of your season, in my opinion.
I think you're right. And yeah, I mean, those first 4 games, Alabama A&M, Cal, New Mexico, and Arkansas, I think you win those 4 games at home. I think you'll be favored in all 4 of those games unless Arkansas does something crazy. I can't see that happening. And then you'll be in a situation where if you beat Oklahoma, they will rank you. You will be ranked 5-0 heading into Athens with a chance to make a statement if you can pull that off. So I'm with you. I think that was certainly in the top 3. Another one for me that I think is up there is the road trip to Kentucky. This happens right after you go on the road to Missouri. So, I mean, this is a brutal part of the schedule to me, just from a traveling standpoint. And it's the same thing. Like, which Kentucky team are you going to get? I said on another show when we were kind of previewing this schedule thing, that I want to play Kentucky as late as we possibly can in the season, because it seems like Kentucky always beats some team that's overrated at the start of the year, and then they start to believe in themselves a little bit. That's not going to happen this year. They'll have already played Georgia. They'll have already played Ole Miss. They go to Florida the week before Auburn plays them. I'm interested to see how this Kentucky team develops. I think it's going to be a little bit different. Kentucky's really benefited from the SEC East being down for so much. I think this no divisional SEC play now is going to hurt the teams in the East, and I think it's going to benefit the teams in the West. And I think this may be an example of why, and kind of proof when Auburn goes to Lexington and hopefully pulls off a win.
Yeah, Missouri was my second intriguing game, but Kentucky's a good one too. I think just for the fact that what Auburn hasn't played them in Lexington since, I believe, 2015. The last time they played Kentucky, ironically, when you talk about playing Kentucky later in the season, Auburn opened with Kentucky during the COVID year when all the games were SEC, and Bo Nix and Seth Williams had a really good game. So it's always kind of cool to go to Lexington because it doesn't seem like Auburn goes there that often. So that's intriguing as heck. And then what are you going to get? You're going to get the team that beat Louisville at the end of the year, or are you going to get the team that struggled, and lost some games mid-year? So
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, quarterback position, it's Vandergriff will be there. Brock Vandergriff, the transfer from Georgia, who hasn't taken significant snaps at the college level, but has all the pedigree. A lot of Auburn people wanted Vandergriff for a lot of years. That's intriguing. That's a good one to pick.
My third one's Texas A&M. It's the last game at home of the season. It's also the game that happens the week before you head to Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl. What's this Texas A&M team going to look like? New head coach with Mike Elko. They've had a lot of guys leaving the portal, as we kind of expected. In the past, we've seen Texas A&M kind of fall apart over the course of the season. I think you make the argument that they may be peaking because they may finally be buying into what Elko wants to do. This is going to be a big one for Mike Elko in his first season. And we'll see. We'll see certainly what type of team that is, but I think that one's going to be an important one too. If Auburn's going to overachieve and win 8 or 9 games, maybe more next year, that's when you certainly got to win.
Yeah, especially with a new coach. Anytime you're playing a new coach, it's interesting. I'm going to stick to exactly what I did last year, and it got scoffed and laughed at, and then Auburn was a one stop away from doing what I thought and could predicted last year. I think my last intriguing game is in Tuscaloosa. It has to be. It's always the Iron Bowl. And look, Auburn will be back to the prominence and the national notoriety that they need to be in when they go on the road and beat Georgia, or when they go on the road and play Georgia and Alabama off their feet, when it's in doubt late in the fourth quarter. When that happens, this program will be back where it needs to be in that rarefied air. And I think it happens next year. I'm not saying they win, but I think they will be competitive in Tuscaloosa.
All right. We're going to go ahead and do our way too early season predictions for 2024 because we can, Darrell. So that's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy, and we love Prize Picks because it's a great way, if you love sports and know what you're doing, you can win up to 25 times your money. It's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. So right now you can do all sorts of sports with like Steph Curry for more than 29 points. And you also compare it with Travis Kelce getting a certain amount of catches. So it is so much fun. It really allows you to flex those sports knowing muscles that we all have. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege, all one word, for a first deposit match up to $100. Prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code LockedOnCollege or download their free app. I think the app's great. I like the app more than the website. So use promo code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy. Final few minutes, Darrell Dapprich with me as we dap it up on this Friday. Let's go ahead and predict the schedule. Let's go ahead and do it. I've got Auburn starting 4-0. So I've got Auburn beating Alabama A&M, beating Cal, beating New Mexico, and beating Arkansas. Are we in the same boat there?
We are. Yeah, I've got them winning their first 4.
Okay. And then Oklahoma, I think, is the first toss-up game. Last year, we kind of categorized all these different games to like probable wins, probable losses, and toss-ups. I think Oklahoma is the first toss-up game. I think the situation of Oklahoma is their first road game in conference. I think you could look either way on that. I think Auburn is going to get the benefit of that. That's also the same Saturday where Alabama and Georgia play. They've already announced that's a primetime game. So there's a chance that this game is played at Jordan-Hare Stadium earlier in the day. We don't know what time, but there's probably a solid chance of that. So I think we should keep that in mind too. That usually helps the visiting team to some extent. But I still think right now, if I had to pick, I say Auburn beats Oklahoma.
Me too. I think Auburn starts 5-0. I like the fact that it's at Jordan-Hare. I like the fact that it's probably going to be played early. And I just think Auburn's going to come into that game having put 4 games under their belt, starting to find an identity and get rolling.
All right, Georgia. Going to Georgia, I think Auburn loses that game.
Me too.
Then we got a bye week, and then we go to Missouri. I think Auburn loses that game.
I do too.
Okay. So we both have 5-0 and then 0-2. Right now I'll say that Auburn beats Kentucky in Lexington. Okay. So we're in the same way both there.
Yeah.
And then I think Auburn wins. I think Auburn right now wins their next 3. I think they beat Vanderbilt at home. I think they beat ULM at home. And I think right now I think Texas A&M certainly a toss up, but I've got Auburn going 3-0 there.
I agree 100%. I think Auburn's going to end up 9-3. I think they lose to to Alabama and Tuscaloosa, but play really, really well. Play well, and they're 9-3. Look, if Missouri can show as much marked improvement as they did from 22 to 23, Auburn can. And we don't need to lower our expectations and say, expect it. It's going to happen. And the recruiting class and a second year under Freeze. Other schools have done it. Like I said, Missouri looked like they were dead, and they got to 10 wins. I think Auburn, it will be 9-3 next year.
This really is the easiest schedule that Auburn's had in a long time, I think. And looking at it, it's funny enough, I think this is the worst case scenario for Auburn's schedule. I talked about like, okay, we knew when the Georgia game was, like that was already announced. And I was like, I want the toss-up road games to be far away from Georgia. And they weren't. They're all right in a row. You go to Georgia, to Missouri, and to Kentucky. And with Oklahoma being right before that, like if you can go 3-1 in that stretch somehow, I mean, that changes your season.
Well, what changed for Auburn too, and made it a little bit tougher, is when these opponents were announced last year, we were excited or okay with getting Missouri. Now we have it as a loss. Mm-hmm. At the start of last year, before the season started, I don't think anybody thought Missouri was going to win 10 games. So I was like, oh, that's a W. Kentucky's a W. Auburn would have had a really good chance at going 10-2. But now Missouri has kind of found themselves. So that's a lot tougher game than when they were announced as an opponent on Auburn's schedule this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think so. The toss-up games here. Would you say Arkansas is a toss-up game?
No, I would not. And
would you say Cal, just for the sake of being thorough? Would you say Cal is no? Okay, nope. I'm with you.
Nope.
So Oklahoma's a toss-up game. Missouri's a toss-up game. Kentucky's a toss-up game. A&M's a toss-up game. Would you say?
I don't have Kentucky as a toss-up game.
Really, you think that's a pretty comfortable win?
I do. I have A&M, Oklahoma, Missouri as my toss-up games.
Okay, all right. And I would say that there's
winning
4.
2 of those 3. So,
got it. Well, yeah, I was about to say if you can go 3-1 in those 4 games that I just mentioned, which is the same thing.
What happens if that Cal game's an 11 kick, and they're playing at 1 in the morning their time?
I hope they do. I feel like that's fair.
Cal rolls out of bed, a little brunch, 9:00 Berkeley time. The Golden Bears have to lace it up, tape them ankles, and come play. I mean, that's a big advantage if that's at 11 o'clock. I have a feeling it's going to be a night game. I don't know why, I just do. But if that was 11 a.m., that's
For us having to play so late, I feel like that's the most fair thing to do. Yeah. But they won't do that. They won't do that.
And we know that game will not be on the Pac-12 network because There is no Pac-12 network, right?
That's funny. Yeah, I think that's going to be a nice kind of symbolic litmus test to see, okay, this is how far we've come in 12 months. I think that's going to be kind of the first moment because there's only so much you can do in the season opener against Alabama A&M. But I think we're going to see like a Peyton Thorne that looks way better in that game than he did when against Cal a year ago. I think you're going to see an offensive line that looks way more comfortable. I think you're going to see just a whole offensive system that operates and moves so much better than when those two teams played 12 months ago. And I think, sure, they're in different places and circumstances are different, but I just think as far as execution, that's going to be something we can point at and say, man, we've come a long way.
And think about this. I know we talk about these things all the time. People roll their eyes, but I think it matters. If you do play that game at 11 o'clock and you're at halftime and it's 12:30 on September 6th down in the South, how is Cal going to react to that? It's going to be hot as crap, right? Nighttime, at least it cools down. I mean, when you start the second half at 1 p.m. in that sweltering heat, it's September 6th. That's still summer here. So that's another factor to consider, too. I don't think that they can prepare. It's a whole different deal from a stamina, depth type thing.
Sure.
So it matters. It does.
Let's hit him with the favorite thing that, one of a dad's favorite things to say down here is it's the humidity.
It's the humidity. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Darrell Dapprich, how can people check out everything that you've got going on, bud?
Follow me on X, DAP6410. Me and you, after Auburn basketball games, we go live after every Auburn basketball game. We'll do that Sunday, and then Monday morning and Tuesday afternoons on various shows on the Auburn Network.
Yeah, and you can follow me on socials at Zac Blackerby. Become a Locked On Auburn insider. Click the link in the episode description down below or in the show notes if you're listening on audio. And yeah, we'll see you Sunday. We're a little post-game action talking about Auburn, hopefully beating Bronny James and USC. We will see. But yeah, we'll be back then. So click that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. This has been Locked On Auburn.